The police found 37 bodies under this small town. In the middle of the Arizona desert, there's a town called Black Mesa. Population? 412. At least, that's what the sign says. Most people driving through never stop. There's a gas station, a diner, a church, and rows of faded homes baking beneath the desert sun. Nothing unusual. But in October of 1998, state police uncovered something beneath Black Mesa that turned the town into one of the most terrifying mysteries in American history. 37 bodies, all buried beneath the town itself. And according to the coroner's report, some of them were still warm. It started with a missing hitchhiker. 23-year-old Eric Navarro disappeared while traveling Route 66. The last known sighting came from a trucker who claimed he dropped Eric near Black Mesa around midnight. After that, nothing. No phone activity. No bank transactions. No body. His mother pushed for months until Arizona State Police finally opened a full investigation. At first, officers assumed it was another desert disappearance. The Arizona wilderness swallows people all the time. But then, Sheriff Dale Weaver received a strange phone call. The caller never identified himself. All he said was, "You need to dig beneath the church." Then the line went dead. Police traced the call to a payphone 2 towns away, but security footage showed nobody there.
Still, the message bothered Sheriff Weaver enough to request a search warrant for St. Mercy Church, the oldest building in Black Mesa. The townspeople didn't like that, especially Father Milton. The church priest had been in town for over 30 years. Everyone trusted him. People described him as kind, quiet, and deeply religious. When officers arrived with excavation equipment, Father Milton stood outside the church, smiling. Witnesses later said that smile disturbed them more than anything. Not angry, not nervous, just calm, like he already knew what they were going to find. The digging started behind the church altar. At first, they uncovered animal bones, then human teeth, then a hand. By sunset, officers had unearthed 11 bodies stacked beneath the foundation. Some were decades old. Others looked recent. Very recent. The smell alone forced several officers to vomit outside. Sheriff Weaver immediately called for backup and sealed off the entire town. That's when things became truly horrifying. Because the bodies weren't buried normally. They were arranged in circles. Each corpse faced downward, with its hands tied behind its back. And every single skull had the same symbol carved into the forehead. A circle with a line through it.
Nobody recognized the mark. Not local historians, not tribal experts, not even FBI analysts. But the deeper police dug, the more bodies they found. Under the church, under the school, under the diner. 37 in total. The oldest dated back to 1921. The newest had died less than 48 hours earlier. That newest victim was Eric Navarro. The town immediately fell under federal investigation. News crews flooded Arizona. People demanded answers. But Black Mesa's residents refused to cooperate. Every interview ended the same way. We don't talk about the beneath. That phrase appeared again and again. The beneath. Reporters assumed it was some kind of cult. Then one journalist
disappeared. Her name was Rachel Vane, a reporter from Phoenix. Before vanishing, she left behind a tape recording recovered from her motel room. The audio was heavily distorted, but investigators released part of it years later. At first, you hear footsteps. Then Rachel whispering. There are tunnels under the town. A loud metallic scraping interrupts her. Then she says something that still terrifies people online today. They're feeding something. The recording ends with screaming. Rachel was never found. Investigators eventually discovered a hidden tunnel entrance beneath the church basement. It descended nearly 60 feet underground. The walls weren't natural rock. They were smooth, polished, like someone carved them centuries ago. FBI agent Marcus Hale later described the tunnels in a private interview. He said they stretched for miles beneath Black Mesa, forming a maze directly under the entire town. But what disturbed agents most were the sounds. Multiple officers reported hearing movement in the darkness. Not rats, not dripping water. Breathing. Slow breathing. One officer claimed he heard whispering directly beside his ear, even though nobody stood near him. Another refused to re-enter the tunnels after seeing what he described as a person crawling upside down across the ceiling. Psychologists blamed stress. Most people accepted that explanation. Until Officer Benjamin Reed disappeared underground. Officer Reed entered Tunnel 3 with 2 other officers around 2:13 a.m. Body cam footage recovered afterward remains partially classified. But leaked fragments appeared online in 2014. The video begins normally. 3 officers walking through narrow tunnels. Dust floating in flashlight beams. Then, Reed notices markings covering the walls. The same circle symbol found on the bodies. Thousands of them. Carved everywhere. Suddenly, one officer asks, "Do you hear that?" A low humming fills the tunnel, almost like chanting. Then the body cam jerks violently. One flashlight beam catches something pale moving ahead in the darkness. Too tall to be human. The officers begin panicking. Someone screams, "Run!" The footage cuts out seconds later. Officer Reed was never found. The other 2 officers emerged from the tunnel barefoot and hysterical 3 hours later. Neither ever returned to duty.
One later committed suicide. The other was institutionalized after repeatedly claiming it lives under the town. Authorities prepared to evacuate Black Mesa permanently. But before they could, every resident vanished overnight. Every single one. Homes remained fully furnished.
Meals sat half-eaten on kitchen tables. Cars stayed parked in driveways. It looked as though the town simply emptied in minutes. No signs of struggle, no tire tracks, nothing. Even Father Milton disappeared. The only thing left behind was a handwritten sentence inside the church basement. We were chosen. The federal government officially blamed the deaths on a secret religious cult operating beneath Black Mesa. Case closed. But many investigators disagreed, because several details never made sense. For example, why were some bodies warm despite being buried for days? Why did ground-penetrating radar reveal tunnels extending far beyond mapped areas? And why did seismic sensors continue detecting movement underground for years after the town was abandoned? Then came the final incident. In 2003, 5 years after Black Mesa was evacuated, a group of urban explorers illegally entered the town. Only one returned. His name was Caleb Turner. Police found him wandering Route 66, barefoot and covered in dirt. At first, he refused to speak. But during psychiatric evaluation, Caleb repeated the same sentence over and over. They still sing below. Doctors assumed he suffered trauma-induced psychosis until they reviewed the camera recovered from his backpack. Most of the footage was corrupted, but the final 20 seconds survived. The video shows Caleb running through darkness, breathing heavily. Behind him, dozens of distorted voices echo through the tunnels. Then the camera turns briefly, just long enough to capture something impossible. A massive opening beneath the town, and hundreds of human figures standing perfectly still in the dark, facing the camera. Not moving, not blinking, waiting. The footage ends when Caleb screams. Frame-by-frame analysis later revealed one final detail hidden in the darkness. At the center of the crowd stood Father Milton, smiling. Today, Black Mesa no longer appears on most Arizona maps. The roads leading there are blocked by federal fencing. Officially, the area is unsafe due to ground instability. But truckers driving Route 66 still report strange things late at night. Lights beneath the desert floor, voices coming from empty radio channels, and sometimes people standing near the old town sign, perfectly still, watching the highway, as if waiting for someone new to stop. Because according to local legend, Black Mesa was never abandoned. It simply moved below. And whatever lives beneath that town is still hungry.